Hello, let's get our homeschool year planned together. Here's some of my notes and thoughts and things that I've written down and things I have to share with you. So I love planning out next year's homeschool year in general. I get excited about what we're going to do and looking at curriculums and seeing all the options that are out there. But I know that it can be overwhelming, and especially if you're new to homeschooling, it might be helpful to just have a few steps or just to see what somebody else does and see if that might be a good fit for you. So the first thing that I do when I'm planning out next year's homeschool, and if this is your first year, feel free to skip ahead to the picking part. But what I'll do is I'll look at what we did last year and I'll make a list of the curriculums and things that we've used and resources. And I write down what were the favorites, what were things that worked for us. Things where my kids really understood it, or we had a good time doing it together, or those were the memories that were made, or these were the things that really fit well for our house or our time that we have, things that I find effective. And then I also make a list of things that maybe didn't work as well, or maybe new things that we want to add in, things that need a new direction. And so that gives me kind of a jumping off point, because the stuff that worked well, that we're maybe going to continue on, or maybe use the same curriculum company or something like that, that makes that easy, because then you can just, okay, I've got this figured out. But then the stuff for the new direction, that might take a little bit more studying and comparing and looking into things. So then the next thing that I did is I made a list of what was important to me. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to share this whole list, because I think it's important for each one of us to sit down and really think about, what do I want my kid to get out of education? What do I think is important for my kid at this age? I know that there are state standards that vary. There are country standards that vary. But then there's also personal standards. And obviously, you have to hit whatever state standards are required for your state. And, you don't want to just let your kid do nothing. But I think that is where it's important for you as the parent to really think about, what are the core things that I want for my family? And it could be specific things like, I want them to know how to spell the days of the week, or I want them to know multiplication and division for the elementary age. Or maybe it's character things. I want my kid to be able to share, or I want my kid to speak respectfully to me. So whatever those things that are important to you, I think those are good to have on your list. And for me, I wrote it down for all of elementary age. So up and through grade 6 or so. And so that I know, okay, these are the things that I definitely want to make sure that we know, definitely that we've hit on. Some things are general. One of my things is just exposure to art and music. Now, I also want them to learn an individual instrument, whichever one they pick, but just the exposure to different kinds of art and different kinds of music. That's important to me. So the list is, a little half page long. It's not crazy long, because there are so many things that we could teach our kids, but let's not get stuck in the weeds, okay? Let's just focus on the main things. Let the main things be the main things. And especially in the early years, this book I found very helpful. It's called Home Learning Year by Year, and it has lots of recommendations for different books and resources, as well as just general lists of things that kids would know. Now, I did not become married to this as far as oh, my kids have to know this and they have to know that. And some of the things that they cover are options. It might be okay, in first grade, they could learn about early America, or they could learn about early civilizations. And then they'll have some books recommended or some different ideas for things that you might want to teach in those categories. So you're not going to do everything in this book no matter what. And I also don't really pigeonhole my kids into a certain grade number. I think that grade numbers were set arbitrarily by somebody in the past, and they don't really have a specific bearing on individual people. And you'll see that in people around you in your own life. There are people that excel in certain topics and don't in others, or people that kind of got pushed along and didn't really understand something before they moved up, and it made it harder to understand this because they didn't have a good grasp of this. Or people that really understood stuff, but they were never given the opportunity to learn extra things and above and beyond, so they were kind of bored in what they were learning. So I think it's really important to know your kid and to look at your kid and not just the grade number, whether it's on the piece of curriculum or if it's a chapter in this book. So I don't really get stuck on that, but I do use this, again, as just kind of another set of benchmarks for some things that maybe I want my kids to know right now, or maybe I'll be like, it's fine that they didn't do that because we did this other thing. Or, oh yeah, right, they should know that. Let me put that on for this year for them to learn. So I'll give you a peek inside this too. I'll give you a flip through of how that book works. Home Learning Year by Year, How to Design a Homeschool Curriculum from Preschool through High School by Rebecca Rupp. Okay, so here in the beginning we have table of contents, which shows you how it's broken up by grade level and then also by subject. So it does go all the way up through and includes resources. Okay, so here, don't panic, I like that, that's a great thing. Okay, and it talks about how kids are individuals, talks about different standards. So when you go to a chapter, you'll see that it has the heading here and a little bit about that age, and then it goes into all the different resources. So it might have websites, books, all different resources for that age in these different categories. And I found some great books from the recommended book list. Okay, and then here's kindergarten, language arts, so talking about starting to read, things that they might need to know with reading, and different books that go along with that. On and on. So the whole book is set up pretty much the same like that. Let me flip ahead so you can just kind of see what an older grade might look like. Okay, so here's grade 8. And it again just goes subject by subject and has many recommendations. Ooh, I saw Carry On Mr. Bowditch. We liked that one. That was a good book. So again, I just look through this. I get ideas and I get resources, but I don't worry too much about individual specific benchmarks of learning. Use it as a tool, not as condemnation. Okay, the other thing that I look at, beyond like the goals for this time period or the goals for this year and my priorities for my kid, is also the way that I teach. And that could be the way that I like to teach, the way that I'm good at teaching, or the way that seems effective when I teach that way for my kids, which also kind of fits into their learning styles. And that could be different based on your kids. You know, one kid might learn one way, one might learn another way. And there are some curriculums that kind of hit on different learning styles, which is great. And sometimes things aren't perfect. So I'm not saying that you have to have completely individual plans for every kid, because, you know, that could be overwhelming in a different way. But just kind of understanding the way that you teach, the way that they learn, how that works, what things either worked good in the past, or as you move forward, just be aware of that. Like, oh, this is probably working good because I get to teach in this way and they're learning in this way. And so that's why it's being effective. The other thing is time. How much time does your family have? Maybe you want to invest time in your kids doing sports programs or doing art programs or dance or music or other things like that. And so maybe you don't have as much time to sit down and do a lot of book work. So maybe you need the at-home homeschool subjects to be a little more streamlined and quicker. Or maybe your kid is super studious and they just love filling in the blanks and stuff like that. So, you know, the amount of time that it takes to do certain types of schooling, reading living books, that takes time. But if you're on the road all the time, okay, let's do audiobooks or CDs or things like that. So thinking about the time that your family has and what will fit in with that time. And then also the interests. Now this is your interests and your kids' interests, because if you're bored to tears teaching something, they're probably going to be bored to tears hearing it from you, and vice versa. And maybe as a parent or as a kid yourself, maybe you didn't like a certain subject. And so this is an opportunity for you also to look into the different ways to learn different subjects and what might make it interesting for you and give you that fire to teach it to your kids and to be excited about it and to be curious and asking questions, which will encourage them to learn in that way as well. Okay, so on to the good stuff, looking at the new curriculum. Okay, so we're going to keep in mind what we liked from last year, what we need to add or what we didn't like, what didn't work for us, what our goals and priorities are, how much time we have, teaching style, learning style, interests. And then we're going to search for curriculum that fits those criteria. And depending on the age of your kid too, for the early ages, just focus on math and reading. Let the other things be more natural learning. And like, here we are cooking in the kitchen and doing measuring and mixing and things together. That's science. Oh, let's go outside and we'll look at the ants and study that together. Oh, and I have this book about ants. So here, let me read you this story about ants. Or going to story time at the library. Or going on field trips. So definitely do stuff like that when they're little. Build that relationship. Relationship is so important, you guys. We don't want to put curriculum before relationship. At the end of this, if your kid is super smart, but you have no relationship with them and they have no relationship with their siblings, what was the point? We have to focus on relationship. It's just so important. That's what we want at the end. We want to have this strong bond. We want to have smart kids too, obviously. We want to have this strong bond, and we can have both. You can create the bond while they're learning, while we're doing life together and making it a good thing. Okay, so one thing that I do, and I've talked about this before, is the Rainbow Resource Center Curriculum Guide and Catalog. And I'll give you a flip through of this so that you can see how this is set up. This is a great resource when you're looking at different curriculums and trying to compare them and see what might be a good fit for your family. And one of my favorite things to get in the mail, the Curriculum Guide and Catalog for Rainbow Resource Center. This is a great resource right here. Okay, so they have them broken down by subject throughout the book, and they're color coded, which you'll see here at the bottom. So that's helpful too when you're looking at different things, to be able to just flip ahead to different sections. And then down here at the bottom, they're talking about different teaching approaches, how much involvement you have, which goes along with your time, the learning styles of your children, and then if there's other resources that are needed. It also gives an overview of the approach to teaching, and these are other things to look into if you aren't really solid on what you like to do. Now for me, I'm definitely eclectic. I like using lots of different things from different mindsets as far as teaching goes. But for other people, they pick one of these mindsets and they really go in on it. And so there's not a right or wrong here. It's just different. And also in here, there are these little icons that let you know if it's a Christian, neutral, or secular curriculum as well. Here at the beginning, they make their own package for teaching. And so you can get their own grade level, which will have different curriculum companies included. Or you can also get full curriculum kits from various companies. So you'll see that they've got those at the beginning. Then it starts going into your categories. And so here, as you flip through, like here's some phonics options that you have. And you can see they have all the icons. And it gives an overview, it'll have the highlights about it, and then it explains the program. And a lot of these are discounted. You do save some money from shopping through them, which is also helpful. But this has been so good for comparing different things or giving me a jumping off point, because I'll look in here, I'll mark down ones that seem interesting to me or might be a good fit. And then I go and look up reviews online or flip through videos or get the samples off of the websites. And it really has helped me with making decisions on what would be best for our family. And then the other thing, of course, look up YouTube videos. Type in the different programs that you see. Think honestly about, okay, this might look really cool. I like the look of this. It's got good pictures. But is it a good fit for those other things that I've already determined about our teaching, learning style, and time? So just keeping a realistic view of it. And then at the end, when you have compared the different curriculums, you know what category you're looking for, you've considered the options, and you've chosen a curriculum, go for it. Be all in on that curriculum. The curriculum is not going to work for you if you're still feeling wishy-washy about it. So it's okay to feel secure in your choice. There's always going to be people that it doesn't work for, and it might not work for you. But even that will be a learning experience where you're like, okay, why didn't this work for us? Or why wasn't that? Oh, it just took a little too much time. It just wasn't fun for me to teach. Not that it's about fun, but you know what I mean. If it's a drudgery, then, you know, something needs to give a little bit. Or it just wasn't effective. You know, my kids just, we went through everything, but then at the end, they just really didn't grasp what was going on. And sometimes that could be going down a level too. Maybe just bring it back a little bit and just get that solid foundation for them. We push our kids some, but we don't want to push them so much that they miss everything that we're doing. Better to know something and really dive into it and understand it than to just keep kind of bumping along real fast. So we've compared them, we've considered them, and we've chosen our curriculum, and we're all in and we're going to do it. Then, because now you know what you've picked, now you can keep your eye out for different supplements. It might be hands-on projects that go with it, or pieces of art that go with what you've chosen. Maybe it's the time period, or maybe it's the subject matter that you've picked. Maybe there's living books that go along with it, or field trips that you can do that go along with it. And I love that part too, just writing down a list of the different resources and different ideas, different people that we could study that have to do with this topic. So I hope this was a helpful look inside what I do for my planning. Right now, I have already determined what we're doing for history. We're doing our state history, and we're also going to do Taking Africa for Jesus. So a little bit of both, and then that will also be our geography. Our geography will be all about our state and then all about Africa. So I like that, and I've already got some living books in about Africa and our state and some deep dives on certain people. I've got field trips written down for our state. So I love that. I love that I already kind of know what direction we're going in. I'm still looking into science, still looking into writing. Pretty sure we're going to stick with spelling UC this next year. And, but yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. There's a few things that I'm still considering and seeing what we're going to do. And Bible curriculum too. I've got a couple different things that I'm looking into it. So we'll see what this next year turns into. But I hope you have fun planning your year, just as I've had fun planning mine. And I hope that these resources help you as well. Remember that real life is messy and beautiful, and better with books. Test. How about here? Is this weird? Like doing planning every night. Timber, you're being too loud. Stop it. Books is the Rainbow Resource Center. And I've talked about this before. Just for this year, for this grade, for this year of their life, this is what I want them to learn. These are the skills I want them to build. We're not fighting over them as much. Elementary levels, grade levels. I feel like this is good, but not that good. Okay, let me try again.